Hello, my name's Zolk, and in this video I'm going to be going through all the abilities in the Mythic Star Augur encounter and how to counter them into perspective of a DPS. This is not a full-on tactic guide or a guide for healers or tanks, but more for a DPS needing to quickly understand how to deal with the abilities and the specific things they will need to watch out for. There are a few changes on Mythic difficulty, with the first being Star Augur gains a new ability in each of the Frost, Fel and Void phase, as well as a complete new ability called Grand Conjunction, which continues to happen in all three of those phases. For this guide, I'll be splitting my explanation for each of the phases, starting with Frost, then Fel, and finally finishing with the Void phase. So for the Frost phase, the first mechanic you'll need me to watch out for is the new ability to Mythic Grand Conjunction. This will randomly select half your raid and applies a coloured star sign above their head for 10 seconds. They will then have to run to a coexisting player with the same coloured star sign before the timer runs out to remove the debuff. If a player runs on top of another player affected by Grand Conjunction who does not have the same coloured star sign, they will then explode for around 2 million damage and be left with a debuff to the entire raid called Grand Trine. Grand Trine is a 2-minute debuff where you take an additional 200% damage taken. So basically guys, you just need to be careful maneuvering around the room when Grand Conjunction is active. The way we countered this is by basically using a WEAKAURA, which made our lives a lot easier in spotting who had the same coloured star sign in the room. With this WEAKAURA, the star signs will be replaced with either a green or red mark. Green indicating that person has the same coloured star sign as you, and red meaning they do not have the same colour. I have left the WEAKAURA down in the description below, and also to remember when using this WEAKAURA to make sure you have friendly nameplates activated. The default keybind to activate friendly nameplates is Shift V. I also just want to clarify, as there might be some confusion, you are still able to run over people who are not affected by Grand Conjunction. It's only ever bad if two people with two different coloured star signs run over each other, which will only then trigger Grand Trine. The next ability is Icy Ejection, which are the blue circle debuffs which spawn on 3 members and last for 10 seconds. You still need to treat these in the same manner as on heroic and normal difficulties by making sure to drop them at the outer edges of the room when the time is run out. However, now on Mythic, they now leave an ice crystal behind which lasts for 90 seconds or until you transition out of the Frost phase at 60%. Just make sure to smartly place the icy ejections and keeping the ice crystals as close to each other so there will still be enough room as you transition out of this phase. Once an ice crystal spawns, try your best to not run over them as you take a load of damage, as well being stunned for around 3 seconds. Also, for the last set of icy ejections, just before you hit 60%, remember to help your healers by using defenses, as this will be the hardest part of this phase, where you'll get up to 6 icy ejections going around and Grand Conjunction all happening at once. Lastly, for the Frost phase, you'll still need to handle Frigid Nova like on Heroic. Keep 2 stack groups on either side of the boss. This just helps reduce and shares the Frigid Nova's damage, as well as helping the tanks with the absolute 0 debuff, as they will be needing to share the damage and move in between the 2 groups. Now once you get Star Augur down to 60% health, you will then transition into the Fel phase of the encounter. Not too much to overwhelm you with this in this phase, but basically there's going to be a load of green fire, and it's all down to how well you coordinately place the green fire as a group with a Grand Conjunction happening here and there. So Fel injections still behave in the same manner as on Heroic and Normal, where you take a debuff for 8 seconds and every couple of seconds you drop a new puddle of green fire until the debuff expires. However, now it is far more important how you place the green fire around the room. Always try and keep the fire clumped up. This will help your tank clear the fire up later in the phase with Fel impact. Now also there's a new mythic mechanic added to this phase, which are these things called Fel Embers. These are basically a slow moving green ball which come from the sky, and the impact zone is marked with a green circle on the floor. Once the Fel Ember impacts the floor, it will immediately blanket the area, covering it with green fire, aka the Fel injections, and also resulting in a one shot of anyone is standing inside of this zone. So the way we handled the Fel injections was to always try and place the green fire into the impact zone of the Fel Embers as much as possible. This would be double carpeting the floor with green fire, which in return gave us a lot more room to be able to work with for the rest of the phase, as the space starts to get very tight when you start closing in on that transition into the Void phase at 30%. Fel Nova still happens in this phase with no major changes apart from hitting for a truckload more. You will still need to make sure you stay as far out to the edges of the platform, as the damage is reduced the further you're out. Even if you're a few feet away from the edge, it could result in a one shot, and there's a lot of other damage still going out during the Fel Nova, as your healers can't guarantee everyone to be topped off. So after every Fel Nova has gone out, you will have around 8 seconds to try and space out from each other, as Grand Conjunction will be happening once again and you don't want anyone stacked to accidentally trigger Grand Trine. So as you can tell, space is vital in this phase, as placing the Fel ejection as well is what's going to help your raid the most, as space really does become a luxury once you're getting Star Augur close to transitioning out of the Fel phase. Once you do hit 30%, you will then finally transition into the Void phase. In this phase, there are a few things to be looking out for, with the first being the World Devouring Force. This is a huge line of shadow damage which is fatal to anyone who will be standing in the line. An Eye of the Void will spawn around the room in the distance, which will then begin the 5-second cast for World Devouring Force. There will then be a shadowy line which will appear on the platform, just keep your eyes open and don't stand in it. Make sure as a raid you have a few designated people to keep on the lookout, as the Eye of the Void can spawn in 7 possible locations around the platform. This will make it easier to see where the eye spawns, so you can easily call out where the safe spots are on the platform and not have half your raid one-shotted. We use markers placed to call out where the safe spots will be. After the World Devouring Force has gone out, it will also spawn Remnants of the Void. These are non-targetable pink eyes which spawn on the platform with a purple-pink line coming from it. As a raid, you have around 6 seconds before the cast goes off, so just make sure to have a few people stacked within the line to help share the damage it does. Normally we were loosely stacked at the boss, so you don't have to think about the remnants too much. Next, I'm going to be going through the 2 types of ads in this phase, one of them having a weird name called Thing That Should Not Be, which I'm going to just call the big ad for this example, and the smaller ads called Voidling. The big ad is always the DPS focused priority, and its ability is called Witness of the Void. This is a 3-second cast and does a huge amount of AoE damage to your raid. You should ever only allow 2 casts of Witness of the Void to go off per big ad. Also to remember to never stand facing the ad when Witness of the Void cast goes off, as you will take a big amount of damage, as well being feared for around 5 seconds, most likely resulting in a death. The other ad in this phase are the small Voidlings. Voidlings can spawn once a Void ejection and 8-second dot debuff expires, and they will then spawn 2 on that location. You want to passively cleave these Voidlings, but not to leave them up for too long, as they will leave a stack of Void Burst to anyone being hit by them. So as you can imagine, you can soon be overrun with Voidlings, just putting huge amount of stacks on your raid and mainly your tanks, then resulting in not allowing your healers to catch up. So yeah, just kill them when you can. Lastly, Void Nova you will still have to look out for in this phase. Void Nova still does a large amount of AoE damage to your raid, so make sure you got healing CDs running and staying stacked to help your healers keep you up. Also, an old foe is still happening throughout this phase, and that's Grand Conjunction. As a lot of this phase is about knowing when to stack up, you have to keep an eye out on your DBM or bigwig timers, as you don't want to be stacked as Grand Conjunction is going out. Now that I've gone through all the abilities a DPS need to be watching out for, I'll be now quickly summarizing each of the 3 phases and what to take note on. First, in the Frost phase, you'll have to deal with icy ejections. This is the blue circle debuff where you have to make sure you place to the edges of the room to drop the ice crystal. For Frigid Nova, remember to keep stacked in 2 groups to share the AoE damage, as well helping your tank share the absolute 0 debuff. And lastly, for Grand Conjunction, make sure to run over someone with a matching coloured star sign and don't hit anyone else to trigger Grand Trine. As you enter the Fel phase, you will have to deal with your Fel Embers, which are the green meteors which fall from the sky and blanket the floor with green fire. You want to make sure that you are also covering these impact zones with Fel ejections debuff to save space. Fel Nova is the huge AoE damage which decreases the further you are from the center of the room, just make sure to run to the edges. As well as Grand Conjunction still occurs throughout this phase, you would handle it in the same manner as in phase 1. Entering the last 30%, you will then reach the Void phase, as you will now have to watch out for the World Devouring Force, which is the huge shadowy beam which spawns on the platform. Just make sure to move out of it. After the World Devouring Force goes out, there will now be Remnants of the Void, which are the pink untargetable eyes. Make sure to stand within its line to help share the damage. For the ads, Things That Should Not Be, aka the big ad, make sure to nuke as soon as possible and to not face it when Witness of the Void is being cast. You only want to kill 2 during this phase. Also to keep passively nuking the Voidlings to reduce Void Burst stacks. For Void Nova, you will need to make sure there are at least some personal defenses or healing cooldowns running, as this can cross with Witness of the Void from the big ad, which could just mean a ton of damage taken and a dead raid. Lastly again, Grand Conjunction is still active throughout this phase. Remember to keep an eye on your timers, as a lot of this phase you'd want to be stacked up. So yeah guys, I have covered all the abilities for which a DPS will need to worry about in the Mythic Star Augur encounter. I just want to add that these guys are not intended really for tanks or healers. The reason I don't bother with the tank or healing tactics or go into detail with them is because firstly I don't have the footage to really give a visual example, as well I'm not 100% of the understanding of how these mechanics work, as I'm not a tank. And to me, when your raid is made up of upwards of 75% of DPS, for my time investment it's just easier for me to cover the DPS mechanics. Maybe in future I'll reconsider doing full guides for all roles, we shall see. But anyway guys, I hope this has helped you in some way. My name's Zulk and I'll see you soon for ElitistNoobs Mythic.